She is about to walk into the most stacked, most dangerous draw of her entire career. And the tournament running the event has already admitted, in writing, that it cannot fully control what happens the moment her name is called. Not a rival, not a rumor, the tournament itself. So what does a 21-year-old have to do to make a WTA 1000 event flag her, by name, before a single ball has been struck? Stay right here, because somewhere between a plane landing in Ohio and a racket connecting with a tennis ball, there is a question nobody can answer yet. Not her coaches, not the bookmakers, not even the thousands of fans already boarding flights to be there in person. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why that question matters so much. If stories like this one keep you hooked, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because what happens next in the saga is going to move fast. Let's call her Alex. Not a surname, not a headline, just Alex, the way an entire nation has started saying her name like she belongs to them personally. In a matter of days, she walks into the Cincinnati Open, and this is not a tournament that needed a new star. It already has legends. Aryna Sabalenka is the top seed. Iga Swiatek returns as the defending champion. Naomi Osaka, Elena Rybakina, Mira Andreeva, Amanda Anisimova, this is one of the deepest, most unforgiving fields in tennis. It is not a stage where a hot streak can hide. And yet, out of that entire 96-player draw filled with Grand Slam champions, the tournament's own official preview stopped to single out two names specifically, Alex and Brazilian sensation João Fonseca, describing their fan bases as some of the most passionate and loudest in the sport. Sit with that for a second. Out of a field packed with icons, the organization running the event felt the need to specifically prepare for her crowd. That is not hype invented by a fan account. That is an institution admitting, on the record, that something is happening that it did not create and cannot fully manage. And the scale of what she is stepping into is almost hard to process. In 2025, this tournament pulled in a record 285,571 fans, arriving from all 50 states and 65 countries around the world. That record came the same year the tournament unveiled a completely rebuilt 40-acre campus, the product of a $260 million transformation, new stadiums, a sunken show court, expanded practice facilities, entire neighborhoods of fan zones that did not exist before. This is no longer just a tennis tournament. It is closer to a sporting festival. And somewhere inside that massive rebuilt ecosystem, a Filipina walks in carrying the accumulated hope of a country that has waited generations for a moment exactly like this one. But here is where the tension actually lives, and it is worth sitting with. None of this guarantees anything. Flags do not return serves. Chants do not save a match point. If she loses early, all of this noise evaporates into nothing. Just another promising story that stalled the moment it mattered most. So why does anyone believe otherwise? Because weeks earlier, in Washington, this exact question was already put to the test, and the answer was almost violent in how clearly it arrived. Before that tournament had even finished its opening rounds, the chairman of the event revealed that the vast majority of ticket inquiries that month were not about the tournament at all. They were about one specific question. When is Alex playing? He put it plainly, at least 80% and probably more of every ticket request his team received was about her schedule alone. That is not the level of attention given to a player still building her name. That is the level of attention given to someone who has already become an event unto herself. And then, almost immediately, she nearly blew it. In her opening match against Olympic gold medalist and former world number 4 Zheng Qinwen, she lost the first set, then fell behind again. For a moment, it looked exactly like the story everyone secretly feared, the hype outrunning the results. And then, quietly, she clawed her way back, forced a decider, and dismantled her opponent in the third set. Not a scare, a statement. She kept earning that belief, match after match, taking down defending champion Leylah Fernandez, then Alina Svitolina, then four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka, until she reached a final that had no business feeling inevitable, against Jessica Pegula, the tournament's top seed and a former world number 3. She dropped the first set. Then the skies opened, and rain delayed the match for hours. If you know anything about tennis, you know rain delays are dangerous in a very specific, cruel way. They do not just pause a match. They pause a mind mid-fight and force it to sit alone with every doubt it was trying to outrun. So what did she do when the covers finally came off? She took the second set, then closed the third 6 games to love. Not scraped through. Closed it out, ruthlessly, against a former top 3 player, in a final, after a rain delay. When the last ball landed, something happened that had never happened before in the history of the sport. She became the first Filipina to ever win a WTA Tour-level singles title. An entire country's tennis history rewritten in one final set. The win lifted her from 28th in the world to a brand new career-high ranking of 20th. Her biggest single jump in years, and her first time ever inside the WTA top 20. But greatness does not reward you with rest. It rewards you with higher stakes, because now every tournament she enters is no longer a chance to surprise people. It is a chance to disappoint them. Before a title, a deep run feels like magic. After a title, anything less than magic can start to feel like failure. And that is the exact trap she is walking into now, on a far bigger stage than Washington ever was. Because this story did not start there either. Rewind further to Wimbledon on grass, where the entire foundation of this phenomenon was actually built. Seeded 29th, she became the first player from the Philippines to ever reach the second week of a Grand Slam singles draw in the Open era. Not the first to win a round, the first ever in the modern history of the sport to survive long enough to see the second week. And then came the moment that turned a good tournament into a legend in the making. On center court, facing defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek, she won a first-set tiebreak that stretched all the way to 9 points, then closed out the second set 6 games to 2. Not a near upset. A win on center court over a defending Grand Slam champion. Her run at the All England club finally ended in the 4th round, against eventual finalist Jasmine Paolini, in a tight 3-set battle. But by then the damage, the good kind of damage, was already done. She later described looking into the stands during that tournament and seeing something she had not expected. A crowd that felt almost entirely Filipino, despite Wimbledon tickets being some of the hardest in the world to obtain. Think about the logistics hidden inside that sentence. People organizing, people flying across the world, people finding their way into one of the most exclusive venues on the planet, just to be near her when it mattered. That is not casual fandom. That is identity. And identity-based support behaves completely differently than results-based support. Results-based fans disappear the moment you lose. Identity-based fans show up anyway, because they were never only cheering for a scoreline. They were cheering for what she represents. A country that has produced legendary boxers and basketball stars, but rarely, if ever, a tennis player capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the very best in the world. That 5-week stretch, a WTA 125 title in Birmingham, a semifinal run in Berlin, then the Wimbledon breakthrough, pushed her to that career-high ranking. 12 months earlier, the conversation around her was cautious, quiet whispers about whether she could even crack the top 100. When the WTA opened fan voting for its grass court Star of the Swing award, the results were not close. She won it with roughly 89% of the vote, ahead of the actual Wimbledon champion and runner-up combined. 90%, essentially, in a poll that included the players who had just contested the Wimbledon final. That kind of number does not happen from casual interest. That happens when an entire fan base mobilizes with the urgency usually reserved for something far bigger than a tennis poll. Now here is the part most people watching this have missed completely, because it happened just days ago and almost nobody outside the Philippines noticed it. After Washington, she did not get a break. She went straight into the National Bank Open in Toronto, seeded 25th, and fought her way to the 4th round before running into 2-time Olympic medalist Belinda Bencic, who ended her run in straight sets. It was not the fairy tale continuation everyone wanted. It was a reminder that belief only survives so long before results have to keep pace with it. And it means she arrives in Cincinnati not on a perfect, unbroken streak, but coming off a loss, carrying a career-high ranking, a career-best seeding of 17th at this level, and a target on her back that did not exist the last time she played a WTA 1000 event. So here is Cincinnati, arriving at exactly the moment this story cannot afford to slow down. A record-breaking crowd is expected across the fortnight. A freshly rebuilt, sprawling 40-acre venue is ready to host it. A draw stacked with legends who have already broken bigger names than hers waits on the other side of the net. She received a first-round bye as one of the tournament's 32 seeded players and opens her campaign in the round of 64 against Romania's Elena Gabriela Ruse, a player she has actually lost to before, back in 2024 US Open qualifying. No cushion, no easy reintroduction, just straight into danger. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you if you are paying close attention. Every one of her biggest wins so far has raised the ceiling of what people now expect from the next one. Raised expectations are their own opponent, one that does not live on the other side of the net, but entirely inside her own head. Can she carry the weight of an entire country's hope into a draw filled with multiple Grand Slam champions? Can she manage the psychological shift from being the hunter to suddenly being the hunted, the player everyone studies now instead of overlooks? Can she walk out in front of a record-setting crowd, many of them there specifically because of her, and still play like nobody is watching? Nobody knows. That is not a dodge. That is the actual truth, and it is exactly why this is worth watching instead of assuming how it ends. Because elite sport does not become gripping through guaranteed victory. It becomes gripping through uncertainty, wrapped around someone who has already proven she is capable of something extraordinary. If she were ranked 200 and unknown, a first-round exit would mean nothing. But she is not unranked. She is not unknown anymore. She is a champion now. A Grand Slam second-week competitor now. A player who beat a defending Wimbledon champion on the most famous court in the sport. Which means every match from here forward carries weight it simply did not carry a year ago. That weight will either forge her into something her country has never produced before, or it will become the exact pressure that stalls everything she has built. Nobody watching gets to skip ahead and find out early. You have to sit with it point by point the same way she does. And maybe that is the real reason the flags keep multiplying wherever she goes. Not because people expect a guaranteed outcome, but because they have learned over and over that when things look darkest, down a set, down a break, sitting through a rain delay with a final slipping away, she has a way of finding something extra exactly when it matters most. That is not a guarantee. It is a pattern. And patterns like that are exactly what turn a good athlete into a phenomenon people organize their travel around, their vacation days around, their entire weekends around. So when the lights come up in Mason, Ohio, when her name is finally called and the first Philippine flag rises somewhere in that record-setting crowd, followed by another and another until the chant rolls through the stands like something rehearsed for days even though nobody planned it at all. Remember how this actually started. Remember Washington, where 80% of the questions were about one player before she had even played a match. Remember the third set against Zheng, when a struggling comeback turned into a statement. Remember the rain delay against Pegula and the 6-love set that followed it. Remember center court and a defending champion who never saw it coming. And remember Toronto just days ago, a reminder that none of this is guaranteed, that even the hottest streak eventually meets a match it cannot win. None of that happened because the crowd willed it into existence. It happened because point after point, match after match, she kept finding a way to be the player worth flying across the world to watch. Cincinnati does not need her to already believe that. Cincinnati is simply the next place she has to prove it all over again, against players who have already beaten legends themselves, on a stage that has already broken bigger names than hers. Whether she wins the whole tournament or loses in the very first match she plays is honestly not even the most interesting question anymore. The most interesting question is what she does in the moment right before the pressure becomes unbearable. That split second between the crowd going silent and the ball leaving her racket. That is where every one of her biggest wins has actually happened. Not in the celebration after, in that split second before. And in the coming days, under lights, in front of the loudest, largest crowd this tournament has ever assembled, we finally get to watch her walk back into that exact split second, one more time. Nobody, not the analysts, not the bookmakers, not even her own team, can tell you what happens next. Which is exactly why an entire tennis world, and an entire nation standing behind her, simply cannot look away. If you want to be there for every twist of this story as it unfolds in Cincinnati, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Because this is one of those stories that is only just getting started.